It is Friday. WagerTalk Today, April the 26th, as we head into the weekend. Huge NBA playoff card again tonight on Friday. NHL playoffs as well. UFC this Saturday. We're going to cover all of it and then some with Andy Lang, Gianni the Greek, Arthur DiCesare from the Westgate in Las Vegas from a sportsbook perspective. And, of course, Teddy covers. And, of course, Teddy's NFL big game breakdown. Nope. It's going to be what bettors learn for the NFL draft, because we did have the NFL draft last night as well. Teddy will have an NBA playoff game for the big game breakdown. And if you behave, we will have a presidential address on the way out, because I am Steve Merrill, filling in for the Prez today on Friday, and Friday only, joined by co-host Teddy Covers. And we're going to get right to it with Andy Lang, the prop master, at the top of the show. And we're going to tease all of you. We have a little NASCAR at the end of this segment as well. So we're covering lots of sports. Let's bring on Andy, the prop master himself. Andy Lang, how are you doing on this great Friday?
I'm great. I know NASCAR props are not going to move the needle on the ratings, but I'm coming in hot with a play that is 10-0 this season. So It is worth your time to pay attention. That's the only reason why I'm bringing it up. No, we're doing great. Great week in NBA. I know, Steve, you're having a really nice week. NBA, Teddy, your season in NBA was great. So looking forward to the NBA season to continuing. We're up 73 units this year and got a lot of good props this weekend.
Let's get into it with a prop for tonight. Let's talk about Karl Anthony Towns as he travels with the Minnesota Timberwolves to the Phoenix Suns. We've seen a fair bit of sharp Suns money come in on this ball game. 3.5s at the open. Now we're seeing mostly 4.5s, 207.5 the total. We're not talking side or total here. We're talking Karl Anthony Towns. What are we going to do with him on Friday night in the desert?
I'm looking at this under 1.5 made three-pointers. I've been playing a lot of these over 1.5 three-pointers, but he's not been going over. He's gone under this total in 5 straight games, including both of these playoff games. What makes this intriguing is that he's not attempting a lot of three-point attempts against Phoenix in the playoffs or this year. He hasn't attempted more than 4 in any of the games he's gone under. In all of them, he's only made 1. That's his max against Phoenix. He's gone 1 for 2 and 1 for 4 in the series, not playing a ton of minutes in the first couple games. A lot of that due to foul trouble. The guy can't seem to stay out of foul trouble. And, there's just a lot to like about this. You got to believe if he can't stay out of foul trouble, he's going to be under 30 minutes again. Why wouldn't Phoenix go at him? Volume isn't there on the three-pointers. So it's a little bit of a nervous play. Anytime he, drops back and shoots a 3, you'll be worried a little bit. But his shooting percentage is not great. So I'll take Towns under 1.5 made threes.
So it makes a lot of sense, Andy. It really does. Given the game plan for these two teams, they don't want Towns on the three-point line jacking up triples in this matchup. That's not where he's best. Nonetheless, all right, you talked about that foul trouble and the lack of opportunities. If he's not in foul trouble here and gets 30-plus minutes, are you still comfortable with your bet?
I would be a lot more nervous if I knew he was going to play 35 minutes, but him trying to stay out of foul trouble is just like it's just like asking Steph Curry to not shoot threes. It's just like he's going to reach. He's going to get one of those just lazy, like moving screens, or I don't know, try and take a charge and end up getting called for a blocking foul. It just, maybe he's just not moving as good, and maybe this is just a bad matchup as Durant and even Nurkic and Booker know how to draw fouls on him. So I'll just keep the fingers crossed that he's going to keep getting into foul trouble here. So he hasn't been able to stay out of foul trouble against this team. Volume is down on the three-pointer. So we'll roll the dice and hope he gets into foul trouble again.
And, of course, you watching it live on Instagram, YouTube Shorts as well. Please comment, ask questions. We'll get to them during the show. And KKK 05x05 on Instagram is asking Suns or Timber. And I'll weigh in on this one. I did a standalone video. I'm doing it every day. It's up right now. So deep dive into all the games. I recommend you watch that. But one thing I point out is that Phoenix was 3-0 in the regular season. They also were the series favorite when this began. And now they're down 0-2. And we often see these 0-2 teams bounce back in games 3. So you would think this is definitely a candidate to do so. And be remiss if I didn't mention last night, guys, the Orlando Magic lost by double digits in games 1 and 2. And they come home and smack Cleveland by almost 40 points and covered the first half. They were up by 16. They actually ran away in the third quarter in that one. But this seems like a similar setup tonight. So we'll see if the Suns can get it done. As often we see this case, and we'll ask Arthur DiCesare a bit about this as well. Line is 4.5 for the full game. First half is 4 minus 15 in some spots. So once again, first half almost as high as the full game. We saw that with Orlando last night. And oh, by the way, the Laker first half line was higher than the full game line last night in game 3. And of course, the Lakers covered the first half for the third straight game and lost for the third straight game overall. So it is an angle the odds makers and betting market have caught on to, but it definitely seems like it might apply to the Suns tonight in game 3. All right, Andy, Prez isn't here today. We might have a presidential address at the end if the viewers behave. We get enough likes. Hit the thumbs up a like. We might get a presidential address on the way out at the end of the show. But we will talk some hockey with you because you talk props in the NBA, but you also do NHL props. What's something you're looking at tonight in the Kings-Oilers game?
We're going to go back to our old buddy Evander Kane to not have a point. This was a good play for us in the regular season. It's around minus 166, so it's kind of hovering on that do you play it or not play it. I think it's worth a play. He just doesn't score against the Kings. No points in this series, despite the fact Edmonton has 11 goals through 2 games. Yet Evander Kane not been involved in any of those goals. No points in 6 straight games versus the Kings. No points in 21 out of his last 30 away games. Pretty decent shot attempts in the first 2 games, but he just doesn't score goals. He doesn't have a goal in 27 out of his last 30 games. So this is a guy that that's not his role. It's Draisaitl, it's McDavid, it's Hyman, it's that power play unit. That's the role of those guys. They're going to be absorbing most of the points, the goals, and the assists. For Evander Kane, it's just not really happening. So he's a good fade to not have a point in the series.
So the first 2 games have flown over, 5-4, 7-4. The scoring opportunities have been there, and Kane still hasn't even gotten an assist in those kind of. I see him listed as day-to-day. Is he going to play tonight? Is he right? Or is this just one of these things? It's like, is this a gift that keeps on giving? We just, even with the high-scoring nature of this series, Evander Kane is just not involved in any of the scoring chances.
Yeah, he's really not involved. And you look at his shots on goal, like he's going over his shots on goal prop. That, like if you wanted to really double up on him, he goes over his shots on goal. But they're harmless shots. They're never like really, really close to going in. They're just kind of flings at the net, and they're, a lot of them are easily saved. It's amazing that he doesn't have an assist in the first 2 games. Hockey is so generous with what they label an assist. You watch and you go, how did that guy get credited with an assist? So he's not even on the ice for these goals, Teddy. He's not on the power play unit, and that's where Edmonton does most of this damage. So it is worrisome about how many goals they've scored through 2 games, but it's just not his role. He's a little banged up, but listen, day-to-day in the playoffs means you're 100% playing. These hockey guys are insane. You have to carry them off the ice in order for them to not play. And even then, they might be back out there. But he'll be out there, probably just not effective with the points. That's just not his role on this team.
So you're saying a lot less load management in the NHL compared to the NBA. They're a little bit tougher maybe than the NBA players in general. So that would be the prop of the century right there for the toughness factor.
A whole new breed, man. Hockey players, completely different breed. They are the stories of what some of the injuries that those guys have played with blow me away. Teddy disagrees.
NBA players don't have pads, is all I'm going to say. You're playing in shorts and a t-shirt. Different.
Well, and it's been a lot more physical too in the playoffs. No question about it. Watching these playoff games, the intensity, the defensive intensity. We've talked about the unders. It's obviously something they are bringing in now, but regular season, I would say it's a little different. But 30 years ago was quite different in hockey. Those guys were insane. Now they're barely insane. But Andy, we're going to tease the NASCAR for one more second, but we do have another viewer comment question from the Instagram chats, and that's in the KC Tigers game. We do have an early baseball game here at 1:00 Eastern. Teddy or Andy, I don't know if either of you have any info for Lugo Olsen. Anything jumped out to you, Andy, from a prop perspective?
No, I'm laying off baseball for a little bit. I got burned on the Braves and the Marlins when the Braves were winning 3-1 the entire game, and then they gave up like 3 hits and 2 errors in the 9th inning to blow it. So I'm laying off baseball for a couple days after I get that sting out of my system. So no opinion from me on that one.
Yeah, Teddy, we don't have a lot of baseball on the show today. Your thoughts?
Well, it's sort of what the markets have done in this game. This game opened 8/8.5 last night. I'm seeing 7.5 juice to the under with the total. Yep. So the markets have a strong opinion on the under in this ball game. I wasn't close to playing it. It wasn't on my short list, so I've got no action on it. But there is a whole lot of wise guy money that's come in betting the under for Tampa, Detroit, and MLB on Friday night.
And I know a lot of the viewers can't wait for the baseball show, which will be up in 2 hours. I'll be on today at 2 o'clock Eastern. Dan Alexander, of course, the great host there. And Dan told me he likes KC first five minus $1.10 for what it's worth. But once again, MLB live at 2 o'clock Eastern. This game will have already started. And we can see an hour into the game if our host Dan has cashed his first five on the Royals. But Dan Alexander does like the Royals. A little freebie for you here on Wager Talk Today for the live viewers at noon Eastern. All right, Andy, let's talk some NASCAR. I'm excited. You know, you and I both started on Wager Talk TV almost 4 years ago, summer of 2020, with the NASCAR show with Rocky Atkinson. And it never really took off. As you said, it's not a huge popular betting sport, I guess you could say, but you and I like it still. And this is something you didn't do a lot on the show, but I like where you're going with this. You're talking about the manufacturer to win the Monster Mile here in Dover, and you're taking a little bit of an interesting angle using a couple of them, I believe. So let us know the breakdown, how you're playing this, and the logic behind it.
Yeah, if I'm coming on Wager Talk Today on a Friday and I'm coming with a NASCAR play, it better be a good one. So, all right, here's what's been happening in NASCAR. There are three manufacturers, Ford, Chevy, and Toyota in NASCAR. You can bet every one of them at plus money. Ford has not won a race this year. So all we've been doing is taking Toyota at plus 120 and Chevy at plus 150 to win the race. Steve, as you know, the Fords just aren't there this year. And there are too many dominant drivers in the Hendricks team and on Gibbs' team in these Toyotas. And they're at Dover, which is a concrete track. Hendricks loves this track. The Toyotas are very good there. Of the top five finishers at Dover in the last three races, none of them are in Fords. And in the last two races at Dover, only one driver has finished in the top seven in both of those races. So all we're doing is we're putting a little bit of money on Toyota. We're putting a little bit of money on Chevy. They're both plus money. And if Toyota and Chevy, or Toyota or Chevy wins the race, you come out with a little bit of profit. This is 10-0. 10-0 this season in NASCAR. So we're just going to keep riding this until the Fords show us something. They're not really that competitive outside of the super speedways to win the race. Decent finishes here or there, but this is a Chevy Toyota track, a Chevy Toyota season, and that's a great way to grab a unit or two off of NASCAR.
Yeah, it's interesting, Andy, too, because, you know, back in the day, there was a huge difference in the manufacturers. Everything's pretty much cookie cutter now, but it's also the drivers is what you're talking about. If you look at the last three races at Dover, the average finish, you've got Bowman, Elliott, and Byron in the top four teammates, and then you've got Christopher Bell, Truex Jr., and Hamlin 5, 6, and 7. So you basically have two teams in the top seven there, 6 of the 7 drivers. So that also has a big part to why Chevy and Toyota are dominating. Andy, real quick, I want to ask you just a general question about NASCAR. You know, I've been handicapping NASCAR following for 20, 25 years, but I've gotten away from it the last several years more than ever just because sports books just continue to delay putting odds out. They become more cautious. Matchups literally come up an hour or two before the race. I was logging the odds yesterday and on Thursday, and some books didn't even have the Xfinity odds up for the Saturday race. You know, so like they're really cautious. Just your thoughts on that and advice you'd give the bettors. It seems to me like it's kind of harder than ever to beat NASCAR because of that.
There's a couple of ways that you can make money off NASCAR. That's probably the best way. Fading Kyle Busch is just the other way. Just rinse and repeat. He's in a bad car. He's frustrated. He's pissed off. And his matchup is against Tyler Reddick, who's going to wax him. So that's all. There's a couple ways to make it NASCAR. I agree. I don't bet it nearly like I used to, but that's okay. The markets change. We change with them, and we adjust and move forward.
And Andy, of course, you do very well with Formula One, I believe, and he also covers other sports. He's got tennis, UFC expert. Andy, tell us what you got going on at Wager Talk this weekend.
Big day tomorrow. We have a 5% tennis play and a 5% UFC play. So use the promo code Andy3. It gets 3 days for $49. We've got a couple of NBA plays that are up tonight. You'll get those. You'll get both the 5% plays that are up for tomorrow, along with NHL and NBA plays. It's a no-brainer. No reason to get just one play. Just use the promo code on my profile page, AndyLangWagerTalk.com. We're up 73 units, all sports this year. We're on a nice 6-1 run in MMA. So looking forward to a big Saturday, big weekend, and that's the best way to take advantage. Promo code Andy3, 3 days for $49. AndyLangWagerTalk.com.
Yeah, put that in perspective. One day is 39, so you're getting the second and third day for $5 each. And Andy's up 73 units in 2024. Teddy and myself, Steve Merrill, we're having monster 2024s as well. But Teddy, I would venture to guess 90 to 95% of our plays have been completely different than anything Andy has sports-wise or even how he's playing them because he has the prop masters. So you can literally diversify, get all of us, and make even more money this year. And it's been working so far in 2024. Teddy, we're going to get to some UFC with Gianni the Greek in a little bit. You're going to have a big game breakdown on Bucks Pacers as well. And then, of course, Arthur DiCesare, risk supervisor from the Westgate. Looking forward to talking with him as we do every Friday, especially now that the NBA playoffs are here. But NFL, I always say the NFL sneaks in no matter what time of the year it is. And they had a big night last night with the NFL draft. And I want to get your takes on it, and I'll chime in afterwards because it's very frustrating for me because I know how you can build a roster, how you can build a franchise, but nobody does it that way because, you kind of have to, it's got to do it now. Otherwise, you're on the hot seat in a couple of years. So your take on the NFL draft, not necessarily last night, just a big picture overall.
First, I got to ask you, I'm fascinated. How do you build an NFL team? What's the way to do it?
I've said this a couple times. If you were to give me 5 years, and I know I wouldn't be fired, I could do whatever I want for 5 years, I'm pretty sure I could have a playoff team. And the way I would do it, Teddy, is I would trade as many picks as possible and get double the picks back. I would trade my first round, get 2 second rounds, and I would do it every year. And then over a 5-year period, you honestly would have ended up with probably, 10, 15, 20 more draft picks. And you maybe get a Tom Brady in the 6th round. You get a Brock Purdy with the last pick in the 7th round. Teams chase. And the reason they chase is because the GMs and the coaches aren't going to be there in 2 years if they don't win. So they have to try to catch lightning in a bottle with the quarterback picks. And you and I know we've done this long enough. They're wrong more times than they're right. And the Cleveland Browns are such a great example. During the Brady era, they had, 20-some different quarterbacks and could never get it done. And the reason Purdy and these other guys like Roethlisberger come in and they win right away late first rounds because they're on teams that have good lines. They have good offensive lines, good defenses. And you got to wonder last year as well, had the Texans ended up with Bryce Young and, Bryce Young goes to Houston or vice versa, would it have been a different story? So it always fascinates me. I think the teams know what they need to be, yet they still don't do it. And I'd love to hear your take on it as well.
So, FYI, and as you nailed it, everybody gets it wrong. The draft pundits get it wrong. The GMs get it wrong. The analysts get it wrong. If you go back and look today at the mock of yesterday's first round, all the analysts they got the first couple picks right. After that, real dicey. I went back and looked, and I do this every year because it's fun and it makes me laugh. I went back and looked. If you ask me, who were the 3 most impactful draft classes last year? Lions used their draft class to get to the postseason. Texans used their draft class to get to the postseason. Rams used their draft class. That's 3 teams. None of it. The Lions were supposed to be pretty good. They were better than expected. All 3 of those teams flew over their win totals. All 3 of those teams made the playoffs. All 3 of those teams exceeded expectations, largely because of the success of their rookie class. So what do you go? You go back and look at the drafts. Lions got panned for their draft last year. Rams were mediocre at best. Texans, I saw a bunch of drafts. Oh my, the Texans did everything wrong. Oh my God, what are the Texans doing? They're all wrong. All right, so what are we reading today? Oh, meanwhile, I was looking back at the draft. The Patriots were getting A's last year. Patriots got much better in the offseason. Yeah, sure they did. Colts got much better in the offseason. Yeah, sure they did. All right, so what are we hearing here? The Falcons reached their quarterback. The Eagles, they have the cornerback. This one, that one. It's all nonsense. I didn't watch last night. I shouldn't say that. I watched Caleb Williams get drafted. After Caleb Williams got drafted, I didn't watch. Don't pay attention until the draft is over. And then look at the draft again with free agency to try to figure out what teams are actually any good or not. But all of these talking heads, yep. They're all wrong. Get them out of your head immediately. There's my 2 cents. Back to you, Mr. Merrill.
Yeah, I'm looking back. Just say, let's go back 5 years ago, the 2019 draft. 5 years then, it's an annual contract or whatever. Kyler Murray was number 1. I'd say he's decent, but I don't think you take a number 1 on him right now, especially with the injuries. Nick Bosa, though, Quinnen Williams, defensive end, defensive tackles. I want to go back to that because Bosa's been an impactful player, and that's another reason if I could double my draft picks by trading every year, I'd get a ton of these studs out of the SEC, defensive ends, defensive linemen. Those guys don't flop nearly as much. The quarterbacks are literally a coin toss if they turn out to do anything. Daniel Jones was the 2nd quarterback taken 5 years ago. So, that's another thing, Teddy, is I think they chase quarterbacks. They chase quarterbacks where they could be building the D-line and the O-line and then put an average quarterback in there and still win probably.
Yeah, if I'm starting a roster, I'm starting in the trenches. My first draft choice is going to be a tackle, or an edge rusher. And you pick up the quarterback as the last piece of the puzzle, not the first piece of the puzzle, because the QB is the one that you have to pay the real money to when it's all said and done.
Well, that's another thing, too, is you tie up a lot of capital as well with those quarterbacks, and if they don't pan out, you're on the year. You're chasing once again for that reason financially. All right, let's bring on Gianni the Greek. We're going to talk some UFC, a big event this weekend as always. And Gianni, your thoughts on the NFL draft? I know you guys use some sharp money groups, and how'd you all do with the draft last night real quick before we get to the UFC?
I really couldn't tell you. Like, the dust hasn't settled for me. I don't really grade this stuff. Like, I fired probably 20, 30 props, and someday I'll see how the week went, and I'll check it then. Honestly, I don't watch it. It felt like whether it wins or loses is not going to really make a difference at that moment. I'm always looking ahead, not really looking behind. So I couldn't really tell you. I don't think it was a great draft for us, just because looking at today's accounts, like I could just tell by the money that was in there yesterday compared to the money that's in there today. So I don't think we crushed the draft past few years, but I just couldn't tell you for sure.
Yeah, and the thing about the draft, too, is I can get a recap in 3 minutes just looking at the first-round picks instead of having to spend 3 hours watching it. So it's probably the most inefficient thing in the world to possibly watch, especially as a handicapper. Johnny, let's go to the UFC. You do very well at the UFC. What are you looking at this weekend?
Yeah, and I got some NBA, some baseball, and some other stuff to share with you guys for sure. I got a big bet on Jonathan Pearce. He's up around that minus 170, minus 180 range. And I just can't believe it's that low. The reason for it is we have a little bit of recency bias. He's coming in off a loss. His opponent's coming in off a win. But when you look at the strength of schedule, it's not even close. I mean, his opponent, Onama's win, come against opponents that have won about 50% of their UFC fights. So they're coin flip fighters. His losses come against, his 2 losses come against a combined 2 and 3. When you look at the Jonathan Pearce side, he is coming off a loss, but he's won 5 of his last 6. And those wins come against opponents that won 65% of his fights. More importantly, simply look at the data. And I'm not a big X's and O's guy, but it's this simple. He could make this an easy fight. If he doesn't get knocked out in the very first round, all he has to do is implement his ground game. He averages over 5 takedown attempts per 5 minutes, and he's going up against a guy who has a 45% takedown defense. Onama doesn't get controlled for very long, but Pearce is very strong. He's one of those guys. If any featherweight's going to control him, it's going to be Pearce. Lay the chalk on Pearce. This should be closer to minus 300. He wins this fight 3 out of 4 times easily.
Yeah, the money's coming for the dog there. I'm seeing minus 155, minus 150, even minus 148 for Pearce.
Oh, yeah.
So,
yeah. Ton about
sorry,
it. Onama's coming in having 3 of his last 4 fights. He won a performance bonus. When that happens, you're more times than not, the fans are going to back you. The bettors are going to back you. When this line immediately opened, you saw the steam come in on the favorite. As the weeks progressed, and we're now less than 24 hours away from fight night, and more recreational bettors get to the window, I am not surprised the money's coming away from Pearce and on the Onama side, because again, he's got power, ton of power. He's going to have a reach advantage, and he is coming off a nice win. But that's what gives us this low price. So for me, it bottom line is I believe I'm getting the best of it. The line move doesn't scare me one bit. If anyone that waited, they're just going to get a better number.
And Johnny, a lot of people focus on these main events and stuff, but the undercard has a lot of value. What's something else you're looking at on the undercard for Saturday?
Yeah, absolutely. When Figlak lost his UFC debut as a minus 200 favorite, I circled him immediately looking to back him in his next fight. This kid's legit. I mean, he comes from Cage Warriors, which is a top-notch organization. He's 5 years younger than Hubbard. Pre-UFC, his last 3 opponents had a combined 28-6-2 record. So he was fighting some killers before he got into the UFC. The fact that he lost his debut gives us a great price now, because he'd be up over 300 against Hubbard. Listen, Hubbard's lost 2 straight. He's 1-3 over his last 4. But more importantly, in his 3 UFC wins, his opponent's record a combined 0-1. So he has 3 wins. Those 3 fighters are a combined 0-1 in the UFC. So this isn't a step down for him fighting Figlak. It's obviously probably a step up. I like Figlak, opened as a small favorite, He's a little chalkier now, but it's very warranted, well worth it. And lay the price, lay the chalk. Don't parlay him. I mean, if you want to gamble a little, but I think you straight bet these. You comfortable. You made 2 good bets, and a ton of value on both these favorites. And I'm usually like to bet dogs, but sometimes the implied win probability on the favorites is just too way off. So I had to fire.
Sure. When a favorite's minus 150 or minus 180 and they should be minus $3, there's value on the favorite for sure. Gianni the Greek. Talk about what you have going right now over at WagerTalk.com. We've only got a few minutes with you today because we got Art DiCesare coming in. He's going to log in on the same link that you logged in on, so he's going to kick you off air. So tell us real quick what you got going in for the clients this weekend, and then we'll talk a little NBA/MLB for tonight.
No problem. Again, like normal, NBA playoffs, NHL playoffs, Major League Baseball, we're running good, running real hot in all of those. Last month was a losing month, but we're really came right back in April and gobbled up all those negative units and turned positive. I'm excited for this year again. We're coming off a year where I increased your capital by 80%. If you started with me with 10 dimes, you won 8 dimes on top of that. You started with 100 dimes, you won 80 dimes. That's the bottom line. So I got a long way between now and December 31st. So we don't celebrate when we win. We don't get too low when we lose. When the dust settles, the truth is told. Numbers never lie. And that's why I make sure all my stuff's documented.
Gianni the Greek. There's only one like him. There is no substitute. Talk to me about what you're seeing in the MLB. Obviously, you know all kinds of wise guy groups. You help them get down on their bets. Talk about where the sharp money is going on today's baseball card.
Yeah, I got to baseball real quickly, man. I saw something I never saw before in my life, Teddy. I went to Oklahoma because I'm seeing this amazing girl. I love you, Jess. And I went to WinStar Casino, and I tried to play blackjack, and they told me that you had the ante. Like, I was confused. I'm like, what are you talking about? Because we played together, and they're like, so you want me to take the ante for both of you, or you each want to put individual ante? I'm like, ante, is this not blackjack? They're like, no, it's blackjack. The rest of the table was looking at me like I was the crazy one, that I was questioning that they were charging an ante for every hand. I swear to you, 50 cents ante up to $100. More than that, it's $1 ante. If it's a nickel bet, it's a $2 ante. Every single bet you make, you got an ante before the hand. It's I thought it was like unreal. Like I couldn't believe it was happening. But real quickly, go under 8.5 in Cleveland, Atlanta. We also played it under 5 in the first half. Go under 8.5. We went under 8 also. Tampa White Sox take Oakland on the money line. Oakland plus 1.5. Mixed information. One group went over Milwaukee, Indiana. One group went under Milwaukee, Indiana. But they all agreed on a couple.
Whoa, Gianni the Greek.
We lost him.
Hey, we got it all in though.
I knew it was
it's funny,
coming.
Teddy, that he brought up the Pacers-Bucks game had mixed information on the over-under because that just happens to be your big game breakdown. Now, you might be looking at the side, but it's a great segue in. Once again, check out Ace, wt.buzz/VR Vegas Runner. Get all his information on the Steam Club and also his best bets for this weekend at WagerTalk.com. But, Teddy, let's transition into that NBA game, Bucks-Pacers. And, by the way, viewers, it is an early tip-off, 5:30 Eastern, because it is a triple header on ESPN tonight. So please note this is an early start, 5:30 Eastern, 2:30 Pacific, Teddy's time. What are you looking at in this one?
Well, before I get into the big game breakdown, real quick, I want to note something that Gianni said there. You know, when Gianni said there, when he's talking about there's two-way action on this total. We always say, oh, the wise guys, the sharps, as if it's a uniform group, and it's not. It's individual bettors making individual decisions or individual groups making individual decisions. Sometimes those groups line up together. And we say, oh, the sharp money is clearly on. Other times, they're battling against each other, and they have different opinions on games. Hence, you see two-way action. And certainly when we're talking about the Bucks and the Pacers total, yeah, we've seen some under, but it hasn't been a ridiculous under in that ball game. That being a ridiculous run of under money in that ball game. That being said, today's big game breakdown is talking about the Pacers and the Bucks side. And then again, note the early start time with this Friday night triple header on ESPN. Steve Merrill just mentioned it, 2:30 Pacific, 5:30 Eastern. Look, the Bucks don't have Giannis, all right? Perennial MVP candidate, all right? They're not likely to have Chris Middleton tonight. stalwart defender. What are they without Giannis and Middleton? Their team's going to get eliminated in the first round. That's what. Milwaukee's 4-9 straight up their last 13 games. All right. And all the wins come with asterisks. The winning game 1 of this series. Okay. Give them credit. They played well there. And that's as good a game as they played. Obviously, we saw what happened after that one good performance. They beat Atlanta one time. They shot really well. They beat the Celtics the night after the Celtics clinched the East. I mean, it really has been not just weeks. It's been more than a month that the Bucks have been playing losing basketball. Their interior defense hasn't been there, even with Brook Lopez, an aging Brook Lopez. The quotes are right. Pascal Siakam, who's won a title, we got to be the hungry team. We know we got to be the team that's coming in and wanting to show something. That's the attitude. Of course, again, we're talking about a former champion, so it's not like Indiana doesn't have any like that. Miles Turner, it's going to be a hell of an environment in there. I'm waiting a long time to give the home fans what they deserve. Meanwhile, Bobby Portis is talking trash. Quite frankly, they're front runners. Y'all could just tweet that or whatever it is. Whenever the shit is going good, they're laughing, clapping, all that. When it's going bad, they're not saying nothing. Look, Doc Rivers has failed everywhere. All right, Magic, he had the one title in Boston. The Clippers, the 76ers, now Milwaukee. He's been losing straight up in ATS in the postseason ever since that title in 2009. The Pacers are hungry, they're healthy, and I think they're the better team. Indiana minus the 6 is the only way I would look on tonight's NBA card. There's your big game breakdown. Back to you, Mr. Merrill.
Middleton banged up. Giannis likely out, as you mentioned. Once again, NBA tip-off show will be on at 4 o'clock Eastern live. If you have any questions, handle them in the chats on Instagram, YouTube Short, here on YouTube itself, on WagerTalk TV. Once again, NBA Interactive Live show at 4 o'clock Eastern. And be sure to check out my standalone video as well. I broke down all 3 of these games in depth here at WagerTalk TV. So hit subscribe and hit the bell for instant alerts. And this line did open 4. It's now up to 6. So we've definitely seen some money come in on the Pacers as well. All right, looking forward to talking with Arthur DiCesare every Friday here, and a lot of times Prez is hosting, but I get to co-host occasionally. Art, Teddy, what's up?
It's 4:15 Eastern, the NBA
Correct.
tip-off show. Yeah, usually 4 o'clock. No big deal.
Yeah, well, I mean,
No
in general here, we're 3.5 hours away.
15 minutes waiting for us. 4:15
they get the
Eastern.
chats going. They get interactive going in the chats there. So sometimes we do go early, actually, at 4 Eastern. So just a general thought there. But 1 o'clock, 15 Pacific for Teddy Covers on WagerTalk TV. Arthur, it is 9:34 a.m. Pacific, your time. Thank you for joining us this Friday morning. Always great to see you. And let's get right to it. Your thoughts on the NBA playoffs. You can chime on the NHL, of course, as well, because I know you covered that. But the NBA playoffs are up and rolling. I talked about these game threes, how we see the first half line higher than the full game line sometimes. We saw that yesterday with the Lakers, and it was actually the right price because they covered the first half, lost the game. Your thoughts on that and just the NBA playoffs in general?
Yeah, Steve, I'm glad you brought that up because obviously we have a situation like that with Minnesota going to Phoenix up 2-0. And we had all those scenarios yesterday, 3 home teams in 0-2 holes. And your spread will maybe be a little inflated, but your first half and first quarters are definitely inflated. Didn't work out for the Sixers. They ended up coming back and winning the game and covering, but didn't do it in the first half of the first quarter. The other teams did. Like you said, the Lakers, they were fine in the first quarter and the first half, and obviously Orlando as well. So that's a similar thing today. Phoenix, we opened 3.5. It's now 4.5. Total of 209 in the open, 207.5 now. So under money and Phoenix money has come as well. But the first half is just like the game. 4.5. You got a first quarter in the 3.5 range. You just see that in these must-win games at home. And I know the season bettors understand that. But, occasionally you get some people who wonder, like, wait, how could that be possible? But that's the reason for it. These are back against the wall type of games, and you figure the home team will come out down 0-2 and play a good first half, first quarter.
So how did last night work out? How have the playoffs worked out for you so far? Because it looked to me like the books might have got hit pretty good on the Orlando game. All the sharp money was on the Magic in that contest. All the sharp money was on Philadelphia and the over in that game. We had lots of money to the over in the Denver Lakers game. Did you guys get beat up last night? How have the playoffs been so far? And was last night the exception, or has last night been the rule so far here in the postseason?
No, yeah, Teddy, I'm with you. The 2 games you mentioned where the sharp money was, yeah, Sure, we didn't win on those games, but I'll tell you what, people wanting to come in and blindly bet the Lakers is working out for us. They continually want to do it. They continually even want to come in and bet the series price. Down 0-1, down 0-2, a high series price when the series started at 0-0. It's like, it's incredible the amount of Laker money that we get. So the Lakers are going to be good for us. We might only have one more game for it, but they've been good for us. But yeah, no, you're right, Teddy. I mean, obviously, you guys know as well as I do, there's been just a ton of under money that's come in on all these games. You've seen a lot of totals move, even though the Dallas total has moved up. But most of them you see, we open a number, and by the time we close that number, we're, 1.5 to maybe even 3.5 points from a closing number on a total because of all the sharps that have come in and bet these unders.
Yeah, Arthur, I want to ask you real quick about that sharp. Gianni the Greek just mentioned they've got one coming in over, one coming in under in the Bucks Pacers. The NBA playoffs in general, how much more public money are you getting now compared to the regular season? How much does that dictate the lines, or is it pretty much the same?
You definitely get public money, and I'm going to use myself. I am a person who doesn't bet the NBA at all. At all. When the playoffs start, I bet it. So it's one of those things where, and I'm as square of a NBA bettor as you can get. So Johnny is right where you will get groups on both sides, whether it's side or total, and you do have that in Milwaukee total where we took some under money, but some of the over money is starting to come back. You can have two groups on either side, but you do have the public people who come in and start to bet it. And also, too, you get to a point where it's starting to get nice in Vegas. People are coming back to Vegas. People are coming for the pools. People are coming for the nice weather. And if people are in the books and they're just general public players, they're going to see NHL and NBA playoff games, and they're going to put some wagers down. There's no doubt.
Of course, it's windy and cold today, Art, but it's supposed to be beautiful this weekend. So if you're around, come to Vegas. There's better places. There aren't many better places to be on a spring afternoon. Spring is great out here. Really is the best season in Las Vegas. Let's talk some NHL for tonight, NHL playoffs. How are the books doing in the postseason of the NHL so far? You guys making money? You guys losing money? What stands out on tonight's card? And anything that you like in terms of series prices now that they've been adjusted after the early results?
Yeah, NHL's been pretty good for us, Teddy. And, tonight you got a couple of series tied. Sorry, you got three of them tied at 1-1. And then obviously you got the Rangers, who were obviously a big favorite. They're up 2-0. Just taking that game, we opened as high as like minus 190 on the Rangers, down to minus 170. Washington is no good, minus 37 goal differential. We know they're one of the worst teams to make the playoffs, but there was Washington money that came in, back to the wall, figuring if they get a game, it's this game. Vancouver and Predator series, Nashville and Vancouver is interesting because obviously Vancouver's missing their goalie. Vancouver's basically $1.60 in the series price as a favorite. That's basically moved to Pick'em or even Nashville minus 115 in some spots because you're not going to have the goalie for Vancouver. So Nashville looks like the right side there. Winnipeg, Colorado, it's been all about the overs. A lot of overs in these series, a lot of goals. We opened 6.5 over 15. Sharps bet it, but they kind of were like, they were a little hesitant to bet it under, and we only moved 5 cents. We're now at 6.5 flat. They haven't pushed us to where we're going to go under 15 or under 20 on the under. I think they want to see the results of this game, but at some point they figure, especially the Winnipeg goalie, he'll play a lot better. And Edmonton and LA, Edmonton lost a heartbreaker the other night, opened $1.30 on them, now up to almost $1.40. Edmonton, if they get their stuff right, they're still the better team, and that's the one I would look for. I think you're going to get a series adjusted price a little bit lower on Edmonton because they lost the game. They're still the right side in that. Probably a longer series, though, than everyone thought. I had Edmonton in 5, probably could go 6 now.
Arthur DiCesare, risk supervisor of the Westgate in Las Vegas, the Superbook. You can follow him on Twitter, of course, at ArtDice21. It's a great handle, at ArtDice21. And Arthur, before we get to some baseball in a moment, I do want to ask you just a big general question. Liability, future odds, NBA, NHL, any teams you guys are still worried about if they can continue to advance in the playoffs?
Yeah, they really haven't changed from about a month ago. Vancouver is still one that's not good for us, but like I said, their goalie situation right now doesn't look great. It looks like Demko could be out for not only the series, but if they somehow move on, he might be out further. So it doesn't look like that's going to be good for them. And I had mentioned the Suns. I mean, the Suns are obviously down 0-2, even if they get by this series, which I don't think they do. I think Minnesota wins the series. Suns are a liability for us, but we're not worried about the Suns. The Suns, if they ever got to play the Nuggets, would never beat the Nuggets in a million years. So that wouldn't happen. Those two teams are the ones we're sweating in both sports.
Now I'm really rooting for a Suns Nuggets matchup, so we can see if that happens in a million years. Because once in a million years, they probably win. Arthur DiCesare, always and then what I love about having you on, Art, is you're not shy about giving info from the other side of the counter. There are bookmakers that come on and they're like, yeah, well, it's a proprietary secret. You're telling us what's going on behind the counter at the Westgate Superbook. So before we let you go, let's talk a little MLB. And I want to ask you about today's card for sure. But conceptually, what are you going to do with the White Sox? And what are we going to do with the Astros?
It's a great question, Teddy. And we had mentioned when I came on, I think the week leading up to the baseball season, there are going to be teams, like Oakland and Colorado, and the White Sox were one of them, that are these bad teams. Now, Oakland hasn't been that team. Oakland's been a lot better in these first 25 games. Obviously, Colorado's putrid, and the White Sox are historically bad. What are they, like 3-22, 3-23? Yep. So one of the worst records. I mean, it's incredible. You're right, Teddy. I don't know what we're going to do with them. Perfect example, Tampa on the road. Tampa's a pretty good team. Haven't gotten off to a great start, but they're at the White Sox. We opened 210. Obviously, that wasn't high enough. We're at 230 now. Tampa money flying in. And obviously, with all these bad teams, too, you see the parlays build up with these teams. All these bad teams, the teams they're playing get put in parlays as parlay sweeteners. It's one of those. Now, the Astro one is interesting. Their pitching is no good. We know the offense is good. Brand new manager, Dusty's not there. I'm not ready to hit the panic button on them yet. Obviously, Verlander's just come back. He's older. He's got to get back worked into it. But they have problems in the bullpen. Obviously, they signed Hader. He needs to work his stuff out. I'm not ready to hit the panic button on them yet, but they are still priced like they're the Astros. And at some point, we're going to have to get to a point that they're not the Astros if they keep losing, right? You can't keep pricing them that way. So that's something we have to monitor day in and day out and week in and week out with the Astros.
Yeah, I mean, current form is so important in baseball. At some point, the White Sox have to start winning, but we're trying to catch that falling knife right now. And even the worst team, the last several years wins 50 games. Even the A's got to 50 last year. That means the White Sox are going to win another 40-some games. That comes out to about 32% win percentage over the next 140 games. That's like a minus 210, 215 price on average. So, it's kind of where it should be today, I guess. If it's, pretty much right now at the Superbook, I'm seeing minus 230 take back plus 200. The difference in the middle, 215. Exactly what the White Sox win percentage should be for the rest of the season. So I think you guys probably have it priced right. Arthur, always great talking with you. What do you have going on at the Superbook in Las Vegas?
Man, we got a lot of stuff going on, Steve, and obviously always a pleasure to be with you guys on a Friday, especially you, Steve. I don't see you all the time. That's always great to see you. Listen, NBA and NHL playoffs are rolling. Baseball's rolling. We'll have Derby next weekend. We just have everything going on. Obviously, the draft will be finishing up this weekend, and eventually schedule release will come in May. We'll get NFL stuff up as early as possible, so continue to look for that. And as always, if you're down in the Westgate, always ask for help. If we're there, if I'm there, if anyone who can help you is there, we will pop out. We will give you a couple of minutes and just kind of explain everything that needs to be explained.
And just real quick before we let you go, Art, NFL draft. You guys taking action? You guys not taking action? What's the skinny? And how was last night?
We took action, Teddy. We had, about 24, 25 props. We were in that range. And, we only kept them up for a couple of days because there's a rule we have to shut them down 24 hours before the draft. You get into all those logistics. But obviously the dust hasn't settled on all the picks yet. But it's been okay. It's been kind of in the middle. I know we've talked for years about this as kind of a lost leader for us. And, if you lose a little bit, it's fine. You just don't want to get crushed. We're okay. We actually, one that looked really nice for us was Chop Robinson versus the defensive end Verse from FSU. A lot of people picked Chop to go above Verse. He did not. Verse went 19. Chop went 21. So that was one that stood out. That was good for us.
Yeah, Teddy, you stole my thoughts on the way out when he said NFL draft. I was like, man, we didn't ask Art about the NFL draft. So good insight there. And something great minds think alike. That once again is Arthur DiCesare. He's a risk supervisor. He knows what he's talking about at the Westgate Superbook in Las Vegas. If you're in the Superbook, be sure to stop by the counter, ask for Arthur by name, and tell him that you saw him here on Wager Talk Today on Wager Talk TV. All right, enjoyed it. Prez will be back on Monday. I know many of you missed him in the live chats. We love the support for the Prez. We're going to give you a little bonus here from him in a moment. But before we do that, Teddy and I are going to head out so you can have all the Prez you want at the end of the show. But Teddy, have a great weekend. Look, I'm not the Prez. We get that. I forgot to mention the entire show. I'm on a perfect 12-0 all sports run since last Saturday. The Prez would have probably talked about it, maybe 50 times by now, and I haven't even mentioned it. But seriously, Teddy talked about it earlier. Gianni talked about it as well. We take such a long-term investment approach. I don't even get that excited about a 12-0 run. It really isn't a big deal to me. We've done it before, and we will do it again. But, yeah, I am seeing it well. Perfect 9-0 start to the NBA playoffs. So you might want to check out my two best bets tonight in the NBA. And you also might want to get that baseball best bet because all sports, not just 9-0 NBA, but also 3-0 baseball this week, 12-0 combined. And you can get the rest of the summer until football begins August 1st for just $5 a day. That works out to about $2 a play. No promo code needed. That special is on my page and every capper through this weekend only at wagertalk.com. And I've also got a bonus-free baseball play today. And, oh, by the way, I'll be back at 2 o'clock Eastern on the baseball show, so stay tuned here to Wager Talk TV. Also check out my standalone solo daily NBA video breaking down all 3 games in depth for tonight on Friday. Steve Merrill, wagertalk.com. And Teddy Covers, I know you're doing the opening line report every morning as well. Some great content here on Wager Talk TV.
Yeah, I'm doing an open line report every morning, 7 a.m., bright and early. We got the NBA tip-off show this afternoon, 1:15 Pacific, 4:15 Eastern. And, of course, Steve's running good. I'm running pretty good, too, 7-1. The last 3 days had some easy winners yesterday. Good right size. We'll see if we do it more all weekend long. That's going to wrap it for Wager Talk today. Stay tuned right now for Lauren's presidential address coming at the end of the show. Yeah, he's not here, but we saved him some time because he's got some promotion to do as well and some picks to give out. So stay tuned for the presidential address right now, and thanks for watching Wager Talk TV.
It's time for the penalty box segment. It is Friday. We have 4 NHL games on tap. I've got 2 NHL bets to give out to you guys. Before we get into that, I have a huge play tonight. One of the rarest plays I have, one of the winningest bets I make. I have a 5% NHL money line bet. To give you perspective, I am 75% on these plays over the last 2 seasons. 75% on 5% NHL money line bets. If you've never purchased a play from me before, this is it. It goes tonight, and it'll be an easy winner. Okay, 2 bets for you. Let's get into it. Vancouver playing Nashville, and man, Demko out for the series. An absolute massive loss for the Vancouver Canucks and a team that is now going to need to score to win these games. And that's where I'm looking. Let's go with over 5.5 in this Nashville-Vancouver game. And guys, both these teams can score. Now, I understand that Nashville has played to the under this year, 36-41. But Vancouver has played to the over, 42-37 on the season. And somebody is putting up big numbers every game they play. Nashville just scored 4 on Vancouver. The game before that, Vancouver put up 4. This game has gone, we've seen over 6 or 6.5 or 5.5, 3 of the last 4 times. I look at this game and I think to myself, Vancouver can't rely on their goalie anymore. And I don't buy their defense. Nashville has played outstanding, and they've been scoring of late. This is a team that regularly puts up 4 goals, sometimes 6 goals. They've put up 5 or more goals 3 times in their last 9 games. They're not going to have an issue filling the net, especially without Demko, and Vancouver will need to keep up. Take Vancouver and Nashville over the total. The next game I want to talk about is the Avalanche in Winnipeg. There is a 6.5 on board. I was going to release this over for my clients at 6. Now it's at 6.5. I am a little bit concerned, but I still handicap this game and think it has to go over. The bottom line here is Winnipeg played a piss-poor game last game against Colorado. We took the over. It did hit. It went 5-2. But when you look at the head-to-head matchup here, this is the first time Winnipeg has scored a few 2 goals or less all year. This year, they've played 5 times. Winnipeg has put up 4, 6, 7, and 7 on this team. And the reason ultimately is Georgiev is a disaster of a goaltender. Sure, he stood on his head last game, but that doesn't happen on a regular basis. And one thing we know, this Colorado team can score goals, regardless of who's in net. And all the talk about Hellebuck being the best goaltender in the world, he's got under 9 save percentage his last 8 playoff games. Something is wrong with Hellebuck when he plays in the playoffs. He reminds me of the stinking Toronto Maple Leafs who can't score when it counts. Take over the total of 6.5 in this Colorado Winnipeg game. And guys, please, if you've never purchased me before, this is the day. Friday, I have a 5% play up. It is going to win easily, and I'm 75% in the last 2 seasons on these plays. Thanks for watching. We'll see you Monday.